welcome to this very short film about using the living plan for people with dementia, which we're introducing now across Shropshire and Telford and Wrekin. Ideally, it will be a plan for that will be introduced to each person soon after diagnosis, and will stay with them throughout their journey with dementia. So, what is a living plan? We nearly called it the Living Well plan, but I balk slightly at the idea of living well dementia, and a lot of people I know do, because it's living well. Well, you know, dementia is not a great disease to have, but living as well as we can, yes, living as well as we can. And we all have reasons why we can't, why we lose track of ourselves now and then. You know, people get depressed, people lose contact, people stop seeing the point of life at times when they've got an incurable disease. So how are we going to use the living plan? Well, ideally, it is a plan for people with dementia and their family or friends or supporters, because, you know, if you live on your own, you're likely to have someone or people locally to you, or they might be at a distance, but people who you confide in, people who support you in some way. And the idea is that together you can complete this living plan, but not all at once, please, not all at once. It is to be done at your own leisure and at your own pace, and filling in the bits that apply at any time, not the whole lot at once. And I have been told that when we piloted this, couples who did it together ended up having really interesting discussions and finding things out about each other, which they didn't already know, you know, after 50 years of marriage. So the living plan is being printed as I speak, and will be sort of contained in a sort of folder thing with a little flap at the back for people to keep their own notes or doctor's letters or whatever it might be in there. Living plan is different from a care plan, because a care plan, as we understand them and as we sometimes have them at the moment, are very clinical, and they don't really, well, the ones I've seen or had don't really say anything about me as a person. They might contain a list of my conditions, they might contain a list of all the pills I'm on, and they might contain the name and address of next of kin. Beyond that, I'm not sure that very much goes in. Certainly I haven't been asked to contribute to a living plan as yet. To a care plan, sorry. The living plan then is about living, all right? Not about clinical care, it's about living. But we'll also provide the details about your life, you and your life, and that can help others to understand you and support you in ways that matter to you. So there's biographical detail. There is detail about where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school, things you enjoyed doing, things you look back on with fond memories. And you might even put in things that you don't want to be reminded of. So you'd say, you know, the time when I don't know, my brother went missing or something, you might put that in saying, don't remind me of this. It's unhappy memory. I don't want to go there. It will include things like what your particular tastes in food and drink are, and how you like your day to go, your normal day rhythm, I suppose. Like I get up probably 8 o'clock-ish. I go and sit downstairs for at least an hour with a mug of tea, a very big mug of tea, sometimes two. And it takes me about 2 hours to surface properly for my brain to start engaging and be able to be outward going. And, I like a light lunch and a bigger meal in the evening. Things like that. Because that matters when people need care, need to be looked after. And at some stage, that's likely to happen to most of us. So please, when you do go through a living plan with people living with dementia, I could have said your clients, but I'd prefer not to. Use it as an opportunity to have a discussion with prompts from the living plan. Use it as an opportunity to have a discussion of things that matter to them. What makes people want to get out of bed in the morning? What makes people smile? When you get to 70s and 80s, or for that matter, 50s, 60s, when you've got a disease, you may find it a bit hard to continue to do the things that you've always enjoyed doing or that have given meaning to your life. So it might be that people need a little bit of support, either sort of spoken word support or moral support, I suppose you could call it, or actually being accompanied somewhere now and then. Like, a classic example would be getting someone to go to engage with a deep group. It's challenging the first time for anybody with dementia, with a new diagnosis of dementia. Most people go into a hole for several months, and they need someone to help pull them out. And that could be one of you. And it might be taking them to their favourite pub. It might be taking them to a deep group which they haven't visited before, or accompanying them to a GP or whatever. Your role, I guess, whoever you are, is to provide support in any way you can that is relevant to and meaningful for the person living with dementia and their carer group. Towards the end of the living plan, there are a number of pages about planning for, I suppose bluntly, your death. We're all meant, through our annual dementia reviews with GPs or their staff, we are all meant to have a future care plan. We may not have it, I don't, but we should have. And the guide at the end of this booklet is there to prompt people to do power of attorney, for example, for both finance and for care, social care, or healthcare, because you never know, you might need it. And if you don't do it, and then you lose your capacity, then the person who cares for you has to go to the court of protection, and that costs money. It takes a long time, so it's a really inconvenience. So always power of attorney. Do a respect form, which is about the situation in which you would want to be allowed to die but that has to be signed off by a GP. You don't necessarily have to do it with a GP, but the GP has to sign it off. And that then becomes sort of formally on the GP system. You could do an advanced care plan, and there is some information about that. So these things seem quite complex. I suspect they're not when you actually get to them, but you may well need to work with someone like me with dementia to actually help us understand just what circumstances are and what you're doing and how binding it is, for that matter. Because I know there's some, I've heard plenty of discussion of two different wordings for future care planning. Something like an advanced care plan and a future care plan. I'm not quite sure. One of them is legally binding, the other one isn't. So it's important to get it right if you're really determined that you don't want any, for example, resuscitation and a sort of heroic resuscitation if you become very ill. So please have a good look through it, and I commend it to you to use. But the intention is that it's retained by the person with dementia and their support group. So they take it wherever they want to. They can show it to whoever they want to. There might be things they don't want some people to see, in which case they won't show it. There might be things they specifically want a nurse or a social worker or someone, or their children, for God's sake. They might want them to actually see things about their past, which they might not know about already, or about how they want their future care. So it's very much in the possession of the person with dementia. One note of caution about medication. We do have a page in there for you to write down the medication you're on. But since most of us are on a number of different medications for different conditions, and they change from time to time, we have agreed, and you know, it is in a sense obvious and safe that a visiting healthcare or social care person will not rely on that list. They will need to actually find out from your GP what it is that you are currently taking and how much of it and when. All right. The list that you can complete is for your own benefit, because you might well be asked from time to time, what do you want? And if you've got a list of it, it's quite easy to tell people. So take the document along to you to consultants or appointments, outpatients, GPs, whoever, and to any sort of social care assessment that you might end up going to, or a PIP assessment, because you will have the information there which you may not otherwise remember. Good luck with that. And thank you very much for your part in using this new care living plan. I know when I've mentioned it to people in other parts of the country over Zoom, their reaction is always, wow, a living plan instead of a care plan. What a great idea. So you are in fact one of the first, well, they must exist elsewhere in the country, but this one was devised specifically by a small group of us, hosted by Healthwatch, and included carer, person with dementia, clinician, social worker. We were a broadly representative group deciding what should go in. And although it looks quite big, as I said earlier, you don't fill it all in at once. Good luck with that. And I hope it helps you to live a satisfying and meaningful life with lots of fun and pleasure while you can. And that's a long time. You can live as well as you possibly can with dementia for a long time. Thank you. I'm George. Goodbye.